Hi, let's talk about what I learned doing a high-density arena install. Stay tuned. So I've got my quarantine haircut, so I'm ready to go. Basketball arena on our campus has never had wireless access inside of the arena area. We had access points in some of the locker rooms and office areas, but that's it. So this was the biggest serious high-density deployment I've ever done. There are a lot of things to take into account for the design, such as where I would actually be allowed to install access points, how we could pull the wires we needed, capacity, and so on. So I also had to design for all of the configurations of the arena, because it wasn't just used for basketball games. It was also used for expos and graduations and tons of high school events from around the valley. There was a standard basketball arena configuration, but then they could roll the seating back to make a huge expo floor. And they wanted it to work both ways. And we couldn't install in the seating because they may get new seats in the next couple of years. So it looked like we'd have to install in the ceiling with tight beam directional antennas. So I grabbed some floor plans for the arena and my little laser distance meter and measured all the heights and lengths and widths I thought I'd need for the install. So let's take a look at it in Ekahau Pro. So it's an 8,000 seat arena, and I'm designing for basic high-speed internet, nothing crazy. So there were 4 beams in the ceiling I could mount to and run the wire on, so that's where I started my design. You can see here the access points are mounted along the beams. I'm using Cisco 3802 access points, and I'm going to do a dual 5 gigahertz design with 20 megahertz channels to maximize the channel usage. I ended up with 24 APs with 48 antennas. I used TerraWave antennas with 30-degree beams on the inside 2 beams and 45 degrees on the outside 2 beams, because they were closer to the seats on the outside because of the angle of the bowl. So as you can see, on the middle 8 APs, I have their height set to 44 feet, and the outside ones are set to 18 feet because of that same slope. It's the only way I can figure out how to get close to correct with the software I'm using. So I also use the channel planner to pick the channels. The center 8 access points I actually have pointing across the floor opposite ways, which kind of increases the sweet spot in the antennas. That's a tip I learned in the design class I took from Keith Parsons. These access points are actually pointed this way and these access points are actually pointed this way. That should make it work better for both the configurations on the floor. So we ordered the equipment and everything was a go. Then the whole world shut down because of the Rona. But all the stuff arrived and we had a lift rented, so no one was in our way, so we decided to go ahead with the install. One of the stipulations with the install was that everything we put in had to be black because it was in the ceiling and they didn't want anything to show up. We were able to get black Cat 6A, but I had to get a little creative with the access points and the antennas. We thought of getting enclosures for the antennas, but we didn't have enough lead time to get them built, so I ended up painting the antennas flat black with spray cans, and we bought some black stretchy swimming caps from Amazon to put over the access points. I cut holes in the swimming caps for the antennas and the dart connectors, and worked out pretty great. So the install couldn't have gone better. We scheduled for 5 days and it only took 4. 2 days to pull the wires and terminate and certify the connections, and then 2 days to hang the access points and name the antennas. I printed out the coverage pattern of each access point separately in Ekahau so my guys could aim them when they were up in the ceiling, and that seemed to work. First couple of access points were a bit challenging until we figured out the best way to use the beam clamps that we were using, because we couldn't drill into the beams, and we had to find the optimal mounting points on the beams for the antennas. But once we got that down, the rest went a lot faster. So the arena has a jumbotron right in the middle of the ceiling, and we happen to have an IDF down inside of it, and so this is where we pulled the wires to. And we mounted a 24-port M-gig switch there, and the 24-port switch worked out perfect because I used 24 access points, almost like I planned it that way. So we also used 2 10-gig fiber uplinks and a port channel from the switch to the building core. Can you say serious overkill? And since this is where I work, and there's no one around right now because of the panic, I was able to go survey anytime I liked. So this is where I'd like to put a plug-in for Ekahau Site Survey for iPad. It's the most awesome product. It seriously makes life so easy. Just plug your Sidekick into your iPad and off you go. No more trying to balance a laptop and a mouse while trying not to trip over everything. So I ended up doing 4 different validation surveys just to tweak a few things in between and try and get it working the best I could. So this is one of the surveys they did. So after 4 surveys, I got my steps in for the week. So validation surveys are something you really can't afford to leave out of your designs. They're the fastest way to find the problems in your designs, and if you're like me, you'll have problems. From co-channel interference to low SNR and capacity problems. And with Sidekick, you also have an awesome spectrum analyzer, so you can find any noise or interferer problems. But if you don't have a Sidekick, use what you got. You got like an AirCheck G2 or WiSpy, even your phone. What I showed you is called a passage survey, which shows you signal strength from the access points and SNR and noise levels, and to make sure you have the coverage you need. But you can also do an active survey where you set up an iPerf server like you can do with the WLAN Pi, and actually connect to your network with your equipment and see your throughput and any roaming issues that you have as you walk about. So I had a few problems with some of the other APs in the buildings, and I had to do some channel and transmit power rearranging. But it's looking pretty good now, so hopefully one day soon we can have events there again, and we'll see if I know what I'm doing. So leave a comment if you have any questions, and if this was helpful, leave me a like and subscribe if you like. Later on, man.